We all know the Stanley Parable, right? That one game where every choice defines every single aspect of how the game ends. A game that really makes you think about what choice you make as you go on this journey to do whatever the hell this story wants to be. Yeah, that game. Well, they made a new version of it called The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. If you were to see this game at first glance, you'd probably think it would be a simple story with some twists, but I'm here to hopefully convince you that it's more than that. This game is a crazy rabbit hole that it really is, in my mind, about how modern games feel so corporate nowadays that sometimes we need something that can take our mind away from that. To just have fun while also taking shots at the modern gaming industry along the way. That is what the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe does, and it does it really well. But before I tell you how this game has made me want to make a video essay about it, I want to tell everyone about what made the Stanley Parable originally so great. If you don't care too much about any of that, you may skip to this time frame to hear me talk about the newest version of this game, and what I love about it. If you're still here and didn't skip this, I love you. Now, the Stanley Parable was unlike any game before when it came out. Sure, there were great games that heavily focused on story aspects such as Bioshock and Portal, but there was nothing really like the Stanley Parable. The game gives you choice, pretty much no limitations, and all you have to do is come along for the ride. The game follows Stanley, an ordinary man at an ordinary job where he pushes buttons. One day, Stanley wasn't getting any instructions on what to do on his computer like he did every other day, so he got out of his chair and stepped out of his office to find out that none of his coworkers were actually there. He plans to go to the meeting room to maybe find them there before coming to a very important choice.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
At this point, it is your decision to choose which door you want to go to. You could follow the narrator's instructions and go to the door on the left, or you could be the super cool rebel you are and go to the door on the right. If you choose the door on the left, you find out that none of your co-workers are in the meeting room, so the narrator tells you to go to your boss's office. You can check out the broom closet along the way, but it doesn't really change the story, except for some extra dialogue while you're in there.
Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
You then have the choice to whether go upstairs to your boss's office or downstairs to the unknown. Going upstairs will take you to your boss's office where you have to put in a code to go to a secret passage. You find out everyone in the office has been monitored this whole time, turn off the machine that does so and get set free. Going downstairs will make you go through a looping set of halls before going insane and passing out, which leads to the narrator telling a story about how a woman found you in the middle of the sidewalk collapsed, pretty much calling you a psychopath in the process. Now what happens when you go through the right door? Well, let me tell you, you go through the right door and the narrator automatically says that Stanley has gone to the wrong door and he just wanted to go to the employee lounge first. He goes to the employee lounge and then he has the choice to either go to the door on the left or continue forward. If you go to the door on the left and listen to the narrator, you can either go forward and continue the main story that you would have done if you went to the door on the left, or you can go to this elevator which leads you to the confusion ending, which is just something on its own, and talking about it would make this video way longer than it probably is. Anyways, if you ignore the narrator and keep going forward, he'll make a comment saying,
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
Now there are many things you can do in this area, so let me go through all of them as quickly as I can. You can keep listening to the narrator, which leads you to this room with the phone. You can fall off this area, which leads you to your death. Or you could just disobey the narrator again and fall off the thing lifting you into this area. If you do that, he would want you to go to the red door, and if you do that, you get led into this room full of weird lights where the narrator says that he feels happy in this room. Then you can go into this other room where if you fall off this high place a few times, you die and the narrator gets sad again. If you go to the blue door enough times to where the narrator won't stop you, you get spawned into Minecraft where you and the narrator have a semi-fun time. And then after that you get spawned into the Portal game where again the narrator seems to be having fun until he decides to stop doing things with you entirely. Then you fall off the map where you get sent to the original Stanley Parable, the one from the 2011 Half-Life mod, until the narrator blacks the screen out telling the player he hopes that Stanley is happy with his choices.
I wonder what he found. If what he wanted was to be the leading man in his own story, well, perhaps he's gotten it. Down in wherever he is right now. I wonder if he's happy with his choice, and if he's learned the heavy cost that comes with it. He'll understand soon what I was trying to tell him. He needs me. Someone who will wrap everything up at the end, to make sense out of the chaos and the fear and the confusion. That's who I am. That is what I mean to this world. Oh, yes. Yes, I'll be back. There's no other way. Once this ends, after it all comes to a close, then I'll be back. The end will be here soon. Very soon. I can wait.
If you choose to obey the narrator again, you will be sent to a room with a phone. If you choose to pick up the phone, you will get spawned into this apartment building where the game makes you believe that your wife is at the door about to open it. For it just to be the narrator tricking you and basically just bullying Stanley for the duration of it before he realizes that Stanley won't do everything the narrator tells him to do. Or you could unplug the phone, giving you the start of what I and many other people like to call Now, this specific ending is what I and many people would like to call the true ending to the Stanley Parable, though the majority of people would just call it the real person ending. Now, like I said, this ending gets triggered when you unplug the phone in the room with the phone I talked about earlier. Doing this will make the narrator say,
"Oh, no, you can't. Did you just unplug the phone? No, that wasn't supposed to be a choice. How did you do that? You actually chose incorrectly? I didn't even know that was possible. Let me double check. No, it's definitely here, clear as day. Stanley picks up the phone, he's taken to his apartment where he finds his wife, and the two pledge themselves to one another. Music comes in, fade to white, roll credits. Not picking up the phone is actually somehow an incorrect course of action. How is that even possible? None of these decisions were supposed to mean anything. I don't understand. How on earth are you making meaningful choices? What did you... Wait a second. Did I just see... No, that's not possible. I can't believe it. How had I not noticed it sooner? You're not Stanley. You're a real person. I can't believe I was so mistaken. This is why you've been able to make correct and incorrect choices. And to think I've been letting you run around in this game for so long. If you'd made any more wrong choices, you might have negated it entirely. It's as though you completely ignored even the most basic safety protocol for real-world decision-making. Or did you not grasp the severity of the situation? Well, I won't have that kind of risk on my watch. I'm going to stop the game for a moment so we can educate you properly on safe decision-making in the real world. Please observe this helpful instructional video.
He then plays a video about choice.
Choice. It's the best part of being a real person, but if used incorrectly can also be the most dangerous. For example, in this scenario, a hypothetical real person named Stephen has a choice. He could spend years helping improve the quality of life for citizens of impoverished third world nations. Or he could systematically set fire to every orphan living in a 30-kilometer radius of his house. Which choice would you make? Remember that unlike here, the real world makes sense, and at no time should you make a choice that does not conform to rational logic. If you find yourself speaking with a person who does not make sense, in all likelihood, that person is not real. Allow the person to finish their thought, then provide an excuse why you cannot continue talking. Turn to a partner and practice saying, "My goodness, is it 4:30? I'm supposed to be having a back, sack, and crack."
When you're done watching the video, the room you're in looks a bit different, or in the narrator's words,
You may have noticed that this room has begun to deteriorate as a result of narrative contradiction. But not to worry. Now that you're properly informed on good decision-making, we're going to revisit a choice you made just a few minutes ago and see what the correct thing to do would have been. This way, please.
He takes you out of the room where you go back to this thingy, which now has a gate on it so he won't mess up the narrator's story, as he knows that you're not Stanley, but now in fact a real person playing this game that you bought. When you get back to the two doors, he tells you to behave exactly as Stanley would and go to the door on the left. Now, you still have the choice whether to disobey the narrator or not. If you choose to go to the left door at first, everything seems normal, until you get to your boss's office, where the narrator will tell you that now you have to say the code instead of typing it, which means you can't do that because, well, you're not Stanley. And the game doesn't support anything with your microphone. If you choose to go through the right door first, the narrator will tell you to go back. Going back takes you to a destroyed meeting room where the narrator then scolds you for not making the correct choice and ruining his game.
It's ruined. I can't believe, after everything we talked about, that my story, you've destroyed my work. Why? For what? What did you get out of that? What did you think was so special about seeing the game undone, left here like so much garbage? It's worthless now. And what am I supposed to do? Even if there were a way to continue, would it be worth it? To know that my story is now incorrect? How can I go back to that? I can't erase that knowledge. I'll have to live with it forever, reliving its impossibility forever. I couldn't live that way. Is it better to shut the game down entirely? To willingly destroy all of my work? I don't know. What's the answer? What do I do? What do I do? What do I... No, I have to. I have to shut the game down. I have to. I have to.
He then quote-unquote shuts the game down before it comes back to a dark, more destroyed place where the narrator scolds you once more for not acting like Stanley.
Oh, I'm here. I'm still here. Here in this pile of rubbish. With you. You, who thought you were so clever. Now look where we are. My entire game is destroyed. It was the only thing in the world that was mine, and you've run it into the ground. What, did you think that would be funny? You just had to see? Didn't I impress upon you how important it was to be like Stanley? He actually knows how to do what I tell him to. He understands that if I say to do something, there's a damn good reason for it. That thought hadn't even occurred to you, had it? That there's a world outside of you? You're a child. Oh, my story. If you'd just gone through the door on the left, you would have seen it. There was a whole underground facility. You would have destroyed it and been victorious. It would have been so perfect. I worked so hard on it. I tried...
Once he's done scolding you, you respond to the two doors again and you once again can choose between which one to go through before the screen cuts to black and then cuts to you on the see-through roof of the room with the two doors. You then hear the narrator try to talk to Stanley and pretty much go insane, telling the narrator that without the real person playing Stanley, there is no Stanley Parable. The one final thing that shows up on the screen is something that says "The End" and "Thanks for playing," and then there were credits, before the game restarts again. Like always, as if nothing had happened. Now after telling you all this, you hopefully understand what made the original Stanley Parable so great. But let's talk about how the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe made it even better. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe is the newest version of the Stanley Parable that came out on April 27th, 2021. Now let's talk about how it made it even better. When you first start up the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, you are greeted with these new messages before you get to the main menu and everything seems fine at first. New stunning graphics that come with making this on a new engine. You may find the ending where you go up to the elevator so much to the point where you make a speech for an entire crowd of people about how great you are. You may also find the ending where you go up to this area, find this new pathway, go through the vents, and find this room with recording tapes where you click on the recorder and the narrator will make fun of you for thinking he was recording this entire time. You may also find the new ending where you go to the mind control facility, fall off this area, and then the narrator will tell you how this used to be a bug in the old game, but they decided to make it a new ending, and then they play this random negative XP song about it.
Good job, you did it. Good job, you did it. Good job, you did it. Good job, you did it. Good job, you did it. Good job, you did it. Good job, you did it. Good job, you did it. Good job, you did it. Good job, you did it.
After the game restarts for about a third of the time, there will now be a door with the words "New Content" on it. Going through this door will get the narrator intrigued. You then go to this thing, which takes you to this room where the voice of the creator of the Stanley Parable, Davey Reedon, tells you about the game and thanks you for playing. You then get sent to an elevator which takes you all the way to the brand new stuff added into the game. The first thing that you get is the jump circle.
Alright, let's see, it's... the jump circle?
And then there's a sign that says, "Thank you for enjoying the new content." The narrator gets frustrated with this before deciding to restart the game. When you reset into your office and leave your office into this weird looking room, the narrator will tell you this.
Psst! Stanley! Come over here! In the vent! I want to show you something!
Once you go into the vent, you get entered into the memory zone where the narrator goes on about how much better the Stanley Parable was when it originally launched in October of 2013, and how Ultra Deluxe had made it into a show of its former self. After glowing about how great it is some more, you go down into the Steam reviews of the game, where the narrator gets offended over some of the negative reviews the game got over time. He reads one of them that says they wish there was a skip button, which the narrator gives to us by taking us to a room where there is a skip button for every time you get annoyed at one of the narrator's rambles. The problem with this is that every time you press the skip button, the skips get much longer and longer. After a while, even the door you went through to get in this room in the first place disappears. The narrator notices this and begs you to not skip again.
Now, I should say that the amount of time the button has been skipping through is becoming longer and longer. That last one was, well, I want to say maybe 30, 45 minutes? It's not unendurable by any means, but there's really only so much I can ramble on to myself about. I know, it's shocking, isn't it? But at any rate, I do suggest that we not press the button again. I think the skip button has been aptly demonstrated, and we can say goodbye to it and just...
But you have to do it in order to progress, so you do it. As you skip more and more, the narrator will talk about how he needs someone to listen to in order to stay sane, but of course, you're going to have to press that skip button. The next time you press the button, a year has passed. The narrator tells you how he's been reflecting on all of this and has pretty much accepted the fact that you're going to press the button. So after a bit of talking about how he's telling you all of this so you know what his pain is like and how he wishes you could experience it, you will press the button. To utter silence. No narrator, nothing. Well, there is this one random noise, but I couldn't tell you what it is. Skip again. To the sound of this beeping. You skip again. Now at this point, you probably think the narrator died. We haven't heard from him in a while, and you'd think that the next few times you press the button, you'll just possibly find a way out, right? Well...
But they didn't understand the game was never meant to be funny. It was meant to have a point. It was meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed their teeth and said, "Entertain us." It wasn't enough. They had to leave a pathetic little thumbs-down review and make all of their pitiful demands. But then, "He's talking too much," they said. First, he didn't entertain us, now he won't shut up. It's the inconsistency, it's the lack of accountability, it's the unwillingness to examine with an uncompromising heart the words that they are speaking into the world. As though there were no consequences for a lack...
You skip again as the narrator doesn't even acknowledge you. You come back to complete silence. Not even a random weird noise. Skip again. Now at this point, you probably believe that the narrator is really dead this time and that
the end is never the end, 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 is never the end.
You skip again. And again. And again. And again. And again. And again. And again. Oh hey, a way out. You finally exit the room you've been in for God knows how long to find yourself in an empty desert. Everything and everyone you know is gone. Without all of this, there is no Stanley Parable. The screen cuts to black, the loading screen happens, and you are sent back into your office as if nothing had ever happened. Now maybe I lied just a little bit. It's not like you just go back to the original game when that is all over. The new content door is still there, but now it's a new content door as the sign next to it says. Once you go through the door, the narrator will tell you this.
Oh good, you notice my sign. Yes, I have something very exciting to show you.
Go to the elevator like you did before, but instead it's something different. The narrator tells you since he was so disappointed with Ultra Deluxe, he made something even better. The Stanley Parable 2. You enter this room where the narrator tells you all about his new project. He tells you he doesn't exactly know what the Stanley Parable 2 is supposed to be, but he's working on it. You then enter this new room where the narrator wants you to test out all of the new features. So let's go ahead and look at all of those, shall we? You go into this room where the narrator tells you to try out the new feature where if you press this button, it will say your name. When you press the button, it says this instead.
Jim.
He then explains that the button only currently says Jim and that you have to roleplay as Jim to get the true experience. After doing so, the narrator will congratulate you for your work. But you can press the button so many times to the point where the narrator will get frustrated and take the Jim button away from you, defying the laws of physics in the process. You could also press the button in the middle of him speaking trying to get you to roleplay as Jim, which will make him do the same thing. Now for this one, the narrator explains that he has built a machine that lets you get the test achievement. You can try to turn on the machine all you want, but the narrator tells you that the machine doesn't work and will work later. In the room where this giant statue of Stanley is in front of, you will see the first of 6 of the Stanley figurines you will find in the Stanley Parable 2. The narrator will also explain to you how collecting all of these gives you absolutely nothing in return. Basically, this is one of the many ways this game makes fun of the modern gaming industry. For the Stanley Parable 2, the narrator decided to bring back the jump circle that we saw in the new concept before. There isn't really much to say about this, so moving on. There is an achievement in this game where if you change everything in the settings to every possible option, you will get the achievement called Settings World Champion. Getting the achievement will grant you access to this door, which takes you to this room. Entering this room will make the narrator give you a choice on which balloon should be in the office for the new game. Whichever one you choose will not be the one you get, because when you choose one, the narrator will say this.
You know, sometimes when you solicit another person's opinion, it makes you realize that you knew which one you actually really wanted all along. Happy 12th birthday, step-niece, it is.
Now, this feature will probably be the most well-known of the many because it plays a big role in the game moving forward. Going into this room, the narrator will tell you this.
A common complaint of the Stanley Parable was that it was confusing and paradoxical, that it engendered a chaotic sense of reckless despair in those who played it. Well, I'm happy to say that after much consideration, I've engineered a clever solution to this fundamental problem with the game. It's the Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket. You see, Stanley, anytime you're holding the bucket, a sense of calm and ease will fill your mind and your heart. It's true. As long as you hold on to the bucket, the many disorienting contradictions of the Stanley Parable will feel perfectly normal and perhaps even comforting. You may even come to long for the gentle embrace of jarring cognitive dissonance while the bucket is in your arms. And to be honest, it's a much more convenient solution for me than actually redesigning the game to be less uncomfortable. Can you imagine what a pain in the ass that would be? Yes, the bucket is the perfect solution. Come on, give it a try.
Picking up the bucket will make the narrator excited, and he tells you how better everything is when you're holding the bucket. When you enter the room with the infinite hole, the narrator will tell you all about the infinite hole, how great it is. And then he tells you to try it out. So you go down the infinite hole and the narrator is asking yourself like, see how wonderful it is? But after a while, he tells you to teleport back. Now doing so will teleport you back to the top where you can fall down again, but not teleporting back will get the narrator more and more worried, to the point where he confesses that the hole may not be as infinite as he told you. He goes on about it until you reach the bottom of the hole, making you realize it's not actually infinite. Shocking, I know. After the narrator calls you a weirdo for wanting to fall infinitely, you teleport back to the top where you can fall down again, where the narrator once again rants about how you're the problem. The weird thing about this is that the hole is now a bit shorter than it used to be. You again teleport back to the top, where you fall down yet again. The narrator again will get irritated at you for this, but before you can even finish a single sentence, you're in the bottom of the hole, which means the hole is getting shorter with every time you teleport back to the top. The narrator tells you to teleport back to the top to see if it's any shorter. You teleport back to see that the bottom of the hole can now be seen at the surface, but of course, as the super cool radicals we are, we fall down the hole again. The narrator tells you to hit the teleport button when you're ready to move on, but this time the teleport button doesn't work, so the narrator abandons you and tells you to have fun with your hole. Being in the hole for a while will cause you to have an hallucination where the hole is going down under, and while this is happening over time, you can change everything about the world around you, even your appearance, before the narrator comes back. The narrator tells you not to doze off because he wants you to be here for every moment you and the hole have, so he tells you he'll pop in every time to wake you up. But before anything else can happen, there's a loading screen that will take you to the main place where all the other features are. Attempting to go back to the infinite hole will not be successful, as now the door to the room with the infinite hole has been closed. Going into this room will show you a big text that says Epilogue, with the narrator saying,
An epilogue would be fun, wouldn't it, Stanley? Yes, it will go at the end of the, well, we'll figure that out later.
You go up these stairs and into this room where the narrator will thank you for checking everything out and presents to you the Stanley Parable 2. Then he shows you this. He then realizes how stupid this looks and says he's going to do an arrangement. He then presents this, which is even worse than last time. He then realizes he can just make the original Stanley Parable and just add some new features to it and everything will be fine. He tells you he has made a new title screen and that you should take a look. Then there's a loading screen that takes you to this. When you start the game, you get the iconic start cutscene. The changes you can see in this is that the balloons the narrator chose in spite of you are now in the office and the title card now says The Stanley Parable 2. You start walking around a bit playing the game as usual and then you see it. The bucket. Picking up the bucket gives you a brand new way to play the Stanley Parable. Every single, and I mean every single ending in this game changes at least slightly due to this bucket. There's a whole new way to play the Stanley Parable, and all you have to do is hold this bucket. I could go over every single little new ending this bucket gives you, but I will not, because I know doing this will make this video 3 hours long. What I will do though is focus on the things in this game that happen next that I'd say are important. After finding all of the figurines that we talked about before, the narrator will once again explain to us that we will get no reward for this, letting you continue the rest of the ending that you want to do. After doing said ending, or restarting the game in the pause menu, you get sent back to the beginning of the office as always, but something is off. You walk to this hallway when you realize there's just a cardboard cutout sort of thing that's just an image of the hallway, and the narrator will tell you this.
Stanley, I'm sorry, but I have to put a pause on things. It's those figurines. Those figglers. I haven't stopped thinking about them since you nabbed every last one. Wasn't it just the most intrinsically fulfilling moment of your entire life? Didn't it fill you to the brim with inner richness? Yes, I know we're supposed to be telling a story, but won't you please indulge me with one more trip back to the memory zone? I would love nothing more than to revisit the figurines. Just one more time.
You get sent back into the memory zone, which in my opinion is just a nice touch of the game. I'm glad the memory zone wasn't just used for one part in the game. It shows that the people working on this genuinely cared about making something memorable. The first thing the memory zone leads you to is the first figurine you got back when the narrator was showing you the Stanley Parable 2. The funny thing about this is that you can collect all the figurines again in this, meaning there are more than 6 to collect. The next place you go is the place where you found the second one. The place after that is a choice, to see if you remember where you found the third one. It doesn't really matter which one you choose besides dialogue change if you're into getting every single piece of dialogue there is to this game. The next room you get is not where you found the fourth one. It's for some reason in this pink room with an apple statue. The narrator tells us he doesn't remember anything about this room, but it's in the memory zone, so it must have happened. Now the next figure that you find is actually one of my favorite moments in this entire game. So you go into the place where you found your fifth one, where the narrator says this one is particularly special to him. Since it's so special to him, he made a video about it. He then proceeds to show us the video he made, which is one of those 2000 style videos made on Windows Movie Maker. To say I died laughing because of this is a massive understatement. Then we get to the last figurine that you found. The narrator tells you he remembers this one more than the others, mostly because it happened most recently. Then you get to this one room with a TV that has an infinite loop. The narrator will tell you this.
And then there was no more, because we've caught up to the present moment. Nothing left to do but move onward into the future. Goodbye, memory zone.
Then there is a loading screen. At this point, you're probably expecting me to say that we go back to the office as if nothing had happened.
No, I'm not done. I'm not ready to move on. Stop the loading screen. Isn't there some way we can stay here, keep enjoying these figurines? Let's just go backwards. We'll do the memory zone again from the opposite direction. See how that feels.
You then do the entire thing again, except this time you collect them all backwards. You even get to rewatch the video even though it's a more sped up version. After you collect all the figurines again, the narrator goes on about how he wants to go through the memories and how much he loves the past. You then go to where you originally found the jump circle. And then you go back to the 2 doors, and then you go back into your office. The narrator says he can remember something else that happened before the office. And then he remembers when he made Stanley, the character you're obviously playing as. He says he has really enjoyed the times he has had with Stanley and tells you to have one more run with Stanley. One more until the narrator retires him for good. After you restart the game about 3 times, you will find something in the menu that says Epilogue. Clicking on it will, well, give you the epilogue, and I'm going to tell you all about it. You are taken to many years later, as the game calls it, and you are back in the desert you were in before being introduced to the Stanley Parable 2. You walk around before it cuts to you in the desert with a fire. Ah yes, human evolution at its finest. It cuts again to a sandstorm. It then cuts to you in the desert at night, with the moon and the stars being your only friends along the way. It then cuts to you being in the desert in the early morning and or evening. It then cuts to you again in the desert in the day, with the memory zone right in front of you. If you turn right, you can find the escape pod, which has the bucket in it. This is actually kinda cool, since if you did the escape pod ending with the bucket, it feels like this is where it ended up. Going into the memory zone, you will see that this memory zone is for the Stanley Parable 2. Going down here, you will see a review of the game calling it disappointing. You then find some of the gem buttons from earlier in the giant news board that teaches that the creators of the Stanley Parable gave up on making a big franchise that they wanted it to be. You then find more gem buttons where you find out that one of them says Stanley. You will then go down to this office where you can find a sign that says, "Thank you for enjoying the new content." And you know, seeing that for a second time meant so much more than it did the first time, just for all the things that I've been through with this game. You will then find the computer, which you will click on, where you are greeted by the same text person you saw when you first booted up the game. They tell you that you and them will burn the Stanley Parable into the ground, with many sequels. You will find a subtitle for the Stanley Parable 3. The text will ask you if you want to do this now. If you click yes, you are greeted with a title screen that looks like this. One more bonus factor is that you can do the Stanley Parable 2 thing again with the bucket, and where you can actually get the achievement this time. And if you go through the bucket thing again with the bucket, both of the buckets will explode. The Stanley Parable holds a very special place in my heart. From playing it on one of my old YouTube channels when I was 11 to making this video essay about it now, I would say it's probably one of my all-time favorite games. If you watched this entire video, thank you. I love you. I know this is very different from my recent stuff I've been doing, but I wanted to branch out when it comes to video essays. And this is something that generally interests me. Anyways, I've been radsterr. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and comment your thoughts in the video. If you want to see more content, please subscribe. I'm pretty sure my next 2 videos will also be video essays about video games that I enjoy. Anyways, this has been radsterr. Thank you for watching.